Secrets get you into trouble, but the truth doesn't always set you free.
You are such a genuine gem. Thank you for clicking on my Foul Play February series. I'm Brooke Makenna, but today is going to be a personal story time about the time I was interrogated in a missing persons case. And no, that wasn't clickbait. This isn't a fictional story. This actually happened. So, you ready? By the way, I'm posting every single day this month content like this, content like true crime, paranormal, creepy. So if you are interested, make sure you're subscribed, coming back every day so you don't miss it. And if you thumbs up these videos or comment down below, I will seriously love you forever. So let's get back to the story. So this was probably when I was about in middle school. I want to say probably 7th grade, but I'm not exactly sure. So it was like a Saturday, and my mom and I were going up to the city. We were going shopping, and I say that because I'm sure that we were, because that's all we ever did when we go up to the city. But it's like about an hour drive up to the city. So we headed up, we're having a fun day, and then we come home probably that afternoon. It's probably about to get evening by that point. And I noticed two girls walking like down our road and then kind of off into a field that's by our house that like leads out of town. And I didn't really think much of it because, to be quite honest, they were like my age and I had really bad social anxiety. I still kind of do, and I was just like, avoid them at all costs, run into the house, don't let them see you, because I thought that they were probably about my age, probably at my school, and I just didn't want to deal with them that day. It was a Saturday. I wasn't supposed to have to see my classmates on a Saturday. If you know how I feel, then leave it down below, because that's exactly how I lived and still how I do. Like if I'm at work all day every day, I don't want to see those people on the weekend, but maybe that's just me. Anyways, we were just minding our own business, you know, getting dinner ready, probably showing off the stuff that I got shopping to my father, and all of a sudden we got a knock on the door. And it's a police officer. I like creeped and peeked through the window and noticed that it was a police officer. And back then, if you haven't watched my other story time about what happened to my 19 siblings, my parents did foster care, and so there were constantly kids being brought to our house, and they were brought in police cars. And so that's literally how I thought children were made, they were just brought in police cars to you and you got them forever. And so this police officer stopped, and I was kind of excited. I was like, okay, maybe I am getting another sibling and my parents just haven't told me yet. And that was not the case whatsoever. So my mom opens the door, and it's this, police officer, a very serious police officer, and he's saying, "Can I talk to your daughter Brooke? Like, does Brooke live here? Is this Brooke's home?" And they were only ever using, one name, my first name. And my mother was like, "Yes, she does. What can we do for you?" And I was kind of peeking around the corner, and I think this officer saw me, so they kind of came in to talk to me. And of course, I was like always a goody two-shoes when I was a kid. I didn't want to ever get in trouble, was so not terrified of the police, but like kind of terrified of anyone in power, because I didn't want to be the butt end of their anger or any sort of confusion, because I was a good girl. Like, I never did anything wrong. And so this police officer was like angrily speaking to me, and was kind of surprised that I was there to begin with, but then began to ask, "Where is," and we'll name her Brittany. Okay, we'll name her Brittany. So they were asking, "Where is Brittany? Have you talked to Brittany? Do you know where Brittany is?" And I was just like, so the name they were telling me was a name of one of my classmates. I knew that. I went to school with this girl. I knew who she was, but I wasn't really friends with her whatsoever. And so I was like, no, like I haven't talked to her. I probably saw her at school Friday. I don't know. I don't remember. Why are you asking me this? Like, I was hardcore panicking by this point, thinking that I had done something wrong, that possibly this girl was angry at me and called the cops on me, and I didn't know why. And just like a million things were going through my head at this point. So I began telling this officer all of this. I'm not really her friend. I don't know. And my mom was saying, "What is this all about? We've been up in the city all day. Can we help you with anything? Is there something happening around here?" Like, we were kind of out of the loop, completely confused. And I don't even know if Facebook was really that big of a thing at the time, so it's not like we could have posted it on Facebook like, "Ooh, what's happening?" and it gone around town like gossip like it does nowadays. We were just kind of at a loss, and this officer just demanded all of a sudden, "I need to see your phone," talking to me. And I just kind of stared at him. And so he said it again. I need to see your phone. It was very angry and very like rigid towards me. And I was like, okay, I don't have a phone. And he just stopped and he looked at my mom kind of like, yeah, she's lying. And my mom was like, no, she really doesn't have a phone, sir. And by that point I didn't. So it must have been, because I got my first phone in 8th grade, so this must have been 7th grade, 6th grade. And I really didn't have a phone, and like I wasn't the type to go and like steal one or use my friends and use theirs. Like I just didn't have a phone. And my mom said if she's going to use a phone, it's going to be mine to call or text. And she proceeded to ask the officer, do you need to see mine? Is there a problem? What happened? Did she contact someone? And they just weren't giving us any information. We were just kept asking, and they just kept asking us questions in return, which I get is how stuff like that happens. But when you haven't done anything, that's horrifying when you're not getting any information back. And so the officer at that point just kind of like softened a little bit, took a deep breath, and told my mom that they didn't need to see her phone. And then they left and told us that if they needed to talk to us again, we needed to stay home in case they needed to come back, which of course we did. And before that, they had kind of mentioned a little something kind of like in passing as they left about the fact that they were looking for this Brittany girl, and they had looked kind of like through her phone of who she'd been texting, and she had been texting a girl named Brooke. They began asking around town, anybody know who Brooke is? Who's this Brooke girl? Not really looking at the number, just asking around, who's Brooke? And of course, since I lived in a tiny, tiny town and everybody knew everybody, they automatically said my full name and told them basically like my address, who my parents were, what I looked like they knew everything. They were just telling them everything. So these officers automatically thought, okay, this is the girl, everybody's saying this is her, we're just gonna go and automatically assume it's her, when in reality it was not at all. Now, I had briefly told them about the girls that I had seen walking and that I thought that they were possibly my classmates, but I didn't know who this other girl was that they were looking for. I didn't even know that was her when I looked at her, because like I said, I just kind of bolted into the house, didn't want to know. And so they just left us after that, and my mom and I were like, what just happened? I don't know. Was I just interrogated in a missing persons case? Yeah, kind of. I mean, I guess it could have been a lot worse. I wasn't like taken to an interrogation room and like handcuffed down. Can you imagine what would I have been like 12-year-old me would have done? I would have sobbed, like just flat out laid my head on the counter and sobbed. Because back then I wasn't that interested in all this true crime stuff at all. I hadn't even started watching the like shows like Criminal Minds or anything like that. I was just a scared little girl who didn't understand why she was being yelled at by an officer. So then I think it was shortly after that day, or possibly the next day, we found that the girls had been found. And I'm not even sure where. I think that they were like walking, trying to get out of town, but I'm not even sure. I don't even know if the information was put out to the public. It was just kind of like they were found, they're safe, they're okay. And it ended up being that it was this Brittany girl, and she was with a girl named Brooke. That Brooke just was not me. And the weird thing is, I did actually have a connection to this Brooke girl because, like I said, my parents did foster care. And she was at one point one of our foster kids. And we didn't even really think about the fact that her name was Brooke and that she was now still living in town because she was out of our house. She had come for a little while. She was like a few years younger than me, I think. And we didn't really get along. We fought a lot. And I'm not even sure why, but she eventually moved to another foster family that was also in town and was going to school with us, and I just didn't even think about it. We even like babysat her a few times when the other foster family needed a babysitter, and she would come over and hang out. And so like I knew of her. We didn't get along at all, but I knew of her, and I knew she was at the school, but I just didn't put two and two together. So technically I did have a connection to this missing girl as well and had no idea. And that is why like nobody really knew of that Brooke, and why everybody was saying, well, there's Brooke that lives down there and looks like this. And like, I wasn't even really friends with this Brittany girl, but they just knew that I was the only really Brooke in town because she was so new in town. She was kind of moving around a lot, so people really didn't know that much about her, and it hadn't stuck yet in people's minds that her name, you know, was Brooke. There was 2 Brookes in town, you know, stuff like that, and that's why we didn't think about it either. But the whole thing was just a complete whirlwind, and it happened like all in one night. And if I would have had a phone of my own, I wonder what would have happened. Like, would they have taken it to search it? Would they have taken me in to ask me more questions? That's what horrifies me the most, is that I was just a little girl and I had nothing to do with it, and they could have like taken it way out of proportion, which I get. They're just trying to, you know, eliminate all possible suspects and try to find these girls. I totally understand that now, but then I was just like, why are they yelling at me? I don't know anything. I don't even know this girl that well. And so yeah, I just thought that was such a crazy experience that not a lot of people probably have experience in, that I wanted to share with you guys. I did my best to, you know, find all the little facts and make them as factual as possible for you, but it was so long ago, so I tried my best. I know it probably wasn't the longest video, but that's what I remember from that. And I mean, I'm glad they were found safe, because I probably would have felt horrible forever thinking that I somehow had something to do with that because I was interrogated for it. But they were found safe. They're all good, and I think that they're good today, although I'm not sure. They were good when we graduated, so. But if you have any experiences where you were interrogated wrongfully for something, please leave it down below. Or if you've ever been interrogated because you actually knew something and you're allowed to talk about it, if you were involved in any case of any sort, I'd love to hear it down below, because I find that so interesting, you know, from like a close perspective in a case. And God forbid I ever have to really go through something like that, and or any of you ever have to really, but if you have, if it's not too personal, I'd love to hear about it, considering, you know, we all love to listen to true crime cases. I'm sure everybody would love to hear about it in the comments below. And also be very nice to anybody telling their story, because it is hard to tell stories to people you don't necessarily know and you don't know how the reaction's gonna be. It can be hard, and people opening up and being vulnerable is scary in this modern day of, you know, exposure and cancellations. And is that even the right way to say it? I'm so old. Canceling? You're canceled? Whatever it is. I don't know. I feel like I'm a 22-year-old and like a 60-year-old mindset. So, but I hope you enjoyed hearing a little bit more about me and my past and what makes me who I am, even though, you know, this isn't like a huge factor in who I am, but it was a little interesting flavor in my life. Ew, I don't know why I said that. It was an interesting little story in my life that, you know, you don't think of that ever happening to someone or it mattering down the line to be able to tell people, but since I do this on my channel, I thought it was the perfect story to add in here for you guys. But I will stop rambling now, because I feel like I just keep going and going once I start telling stories, because I love to tell them so much. But thumbs up if you want more stories from me, because I'm sure that I have plenty to tell you guys. And remember, I'm posting every single day this month, so come back tomorrow if you want another one. And don't ever forget to speak up. Your voice is powerful enough, and I love you to absolute pieces. Okay, bye.